And we are live. How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it talking about the Amazings, and we're also back at it with a breaking news live stream. As you see, it is officially official. I mean, the Mets have yet to make the official announcement, but you know what I'm trying to say here. The Mets have landed their new manager in Carlos Mendoza, not Craig Counsell. We're going to get into that shortly, as we may actually find out where Craig Counsell is going to land in his own right throughout this live show. So guys, everyone first chiming in, guys and gals, I want to know your initial reactions to the news. The Mets have landed their new manager, and it is not going to be Craig Counsell. It is going to be Yankees bench boss, longtime New York Yankee in their organization since 2009 in Mendoza at the young age of 43. I want to know your initial reactions, so make sure you are answering the live poll in the live chat. Do you like this move? Do you not like this move? Do you not really know how to feel about it yet? I'm going to try to answer as many questions as possible throughout the live show. Share my initial reaction as a diehard fan who's been keeping a close eye on this entire managerial process to this point. Why the Mets aren't landing Counsell, as we'll probably find out more and more throughout the live show as we go and discuss further either later tonight or tomorrow and future content. But I just want to know initial reactions here. I have a lot to say on Mendoza and about the Mets not landing Counsell initially. Is this the right move? Is this the wrong move? How much pull, how much say did the Mets have here? And what can Mendoza bring as the Mets next manager going forward for the 2024 season and beyond, as the first true big hire under David Stearns as president of baseball operations? A lot to get into is what we're about to do, but more than anything, happy to have you all in here. We have about 300 live concurrent viewers. If you're watching on replay, I want to know your reactions down below too. But more than anything, I know, trust me, I know you guys are going to have been saying, are going to continue saying, so I will start. I apologize. I'm going to eat my words. There were definitely times where I was very animated and very truly felt that Craig Counsell going to the Mets was in the bag. And that's something that, again, shame on me for doing. As a fan, you get very passionate, but truthfully, there are a lot of reasons to believe why Counsell would make sense to land with the Mets here. And even though that is not now happening, the Mets were clearly a finalist, were one of the final teams to approach him and land him, I should say, not approach him, but actually try landing him. Of course, Cleveland just landed Mr. Vogt as their manager, which is a great hire for them. That's someone who I thought that they were going to be hiring really from the jump, and that held true. And now we see it looked like it was the Brewers and it was the Mets who was Counsell going to decide, and it's going to be neither. And initially I was thinking, okay, that means it's going to be the Houston Astros, and it makes perfect sense. Dusty Baker's heir apparent. Okay, they haven't committed to Espada in recent years. Why would they now? They're going to go with Counsell, and Counsell makes perfect sense. Okay, if you're going to become the highest paid manager in baseball, but have a decision between, say, New York and Houston with the amount of championship pedigree that the Astros have, that would have made perfect sense too. However, now reports are coming out telling me that it's going to be with a team that currently has a manager. So in the back of my mind, I'm saying, don't tell me Craig Counsell is going to the Yanks. Don't tell me he's Aaron Boone's replacement, right? Because the Yanks are expected to have a presser today in the next hour or so, if I'm not mistaken. So really curious to see where Craig Counsell is going to land. Rest assured, we will discuss that further as we get into this. But again, initial reactions, that's why I want to know from you guys. I'm going to say, my initial reaction to this hire is that I'm not against it. I like it, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to your faces. Craig Counsell is certainly the guy, the initial manager option that I wanted the Mets to land, as was the case for many here that have been following along. And this has no slight on Carlos Mendoza whatsoever, but also truthfully, we don't know as much about Carlos Mendoza. He has a lot more to prove at the MLB level as a manager. And don't get it twisted. Again, in order for a manager to become a successful one, they have to start somewhere. So what does that mean? I know, call me crazy. You have to start giving guys opportunities to be first-time managers. Craig Counsell, believe it or not, was a first-time manager around a decade ago with the Milwaukee Brewers. So you understand that. Oh, is the audio really choppy? Let's see. If the audio is choppy, I apologize, guys, too. Can everyone let me know how the audio is? Your mic is popping like crazy. Okay. Bear with me, everybody. Give me 1 second. Okay, everybody. Can everyone tell me? Cubs got Counsell? Are you kidding me? What? Craig Counsell is the new manager of the Chicago Cubs. Okay. All right. What? I'm not even as much mad as I'm just surprised. Who expected this? Who had this on their... How's the audio, by the way, guys? Is it better? I apologize for the choppiness. Is it still really choppy? Is it better? Good? Okay, I think I just had the volume up too much. Certainly didn't see that coming. They must have paid him. Did the Cubs, bro, there's no way. David Ross, who's like, all right, screw me, I guess. Sorry, guys, we're live reacting to the news that, yes, Carlos Mendoza is now the new Mets manager that we're going to be deep diving and having a thorough discussion on. However, for people watching on a replay, if you're wondering why we're kind of being sporadic like this, it's because we're reacting live to this news, okay? And the initial news now is that Mendoza's a Met, Vogt is a Guardian, and Counsell is a Cub? Chicago, dude, Brewers fans have to be furious right now. Are you kidding me? Counsell literally just said, bro, you know what? You're like, Milwaukee, nah, I'm gonna go. Let's stay in the NL Central. Let's go to Chicago. What? I don't even know how to truly process this. Like, closer to home for Counsell? Okay, that can make sense. Yeah, well, I mean, for sure. I mean, maybe that played a factor, right? Maybe the Cubs gave a $5 million per year offer, because I know that's around what the Milwaukee offered. Mets offered, a belief, is upwards of $7 million per year. But let's also factor in New York taxes and how that varies state to state, because those things play a factor, along with the media, along with just being able to handle the big market. And don't get me wrong, Chicago is a big market in its own right, but the feel is very different there too, and what their current expectations are. Pressure is still very different with the Chicago Cubs than it would be with the New York Mets. This is really interesting to me. I'm being blunt with you guys right now when I say that I don't know truly how to feel yet right now as we're finding out this news about Counsell. Chicago taxes, though, that's a fair point. Again, I just want to know how much he's making. Really? Really, really, really interesting. Breaking news. Carlos Mendoza is now the Mets manager. For those that don't know Carlos Mendoza, just a little bit about my man here. The 43-year-old has been the bench boss for the Yanks for the past 4 years under Aaron Boone, and a guy that Mendoza has been widely regarded and respected throughout the league. Something that, again, with a lack of familiarity, and again, I don't think it's wrong for average baseball fans, even people like myself, who, talk about them more for a living, who don't necessarily know to a T every single thing about a guy. And that's certainly the case here with Mendoza, considering, he's been the bench boss for the Yanks. I purposely don't acknowledge the Yanks as much as some other teams because there's a lack of interest, if I'm being quite frank, as a Mets fan. So Mendoza has been the bench boss for the past 4 years, has been in the organization since 2009, of course, has extensive baseball experience as a whole. He has managed for the Yankees in increment parts when Boone has either been thrown out of games, suspended for games. Mendoza has filled in that spot over the past year or two plus, and is someone that now is going to be staying in New York, right? Luis Rojas, famously former Mets manager, became third base coach for the Yanks after the 2021 season, and now the Mets are going to be prying away another Yankees piece, not named Eric Chavez this time, but this time in Carlos Mendoza. And what is interesting now about Carlos Mendoza that I really, really want to get into is, what is this going to mean for the type of bench that he builds? What is his coaching staff going to look like around him? Is Jeremy Hefner going to stay? That's a big question that we're going to be getting into this offseason shortly, mind you. Big one, Eric Chavez, who had been considered for managerial positions with the Padres among other clubs. Is he going to stay? What's his level of interest? And also, what's Mendoza's interest? Because these are two people that, albeit it wasn't for a long period of time, did work together when Eric Chavez, an offseason and a half, or this past 2 years, it was a year and a half ago now. Remember, initially, what happened was Eric Chavez, after being in the Yanks organization under Billy Epler for a bit as a special assistant to the GM, went over to him in LA with the Angels, then returned to the Yankees over this past year and a half to work under Boone. Initially, I'm pretty sure he was their assistant hitting coach. Then comes the Mets, becomes their hitting coach. Then over this past year, became their bench coach. So over the past 2 years, we know that we've seen Chavez in the organization. Prior to that, though, had plenty of familiarity and experience in the Yanks organization. And I'm really curious what his current relationship is with someone like Eric Chavez, if Chavez is going to stay in place now, or if Chavez is going to be part of what elsewhere is just part of the bigger picture here that they got to be making changes for the coaching staff. So again, for people first chiming in, again, obviously Mendoza is from analytics back. Of course, he has the analytics backing to him. And I do like the fact that Mendoza is at the young age of 43. I am very appealed to younger managers. Nothing to slight Buck, but there are some things to be said at times about age of managers and their understanding of the game of today. And sometimes guys, especially if they are older, have a quicker shelf life versus Mendoza here. The ultimate goal is that he's someone that can hopefully be the Mets manager for years to come. Now, whether that is going to solidify and hold true, and Stearns and Mendoza are going to have this fantastic relationship and have plenty of success for the next half, if not full decade, that is yet to be seen. We could be talking a year later and saying how Mendoza got fired. You never know what is ultimately going to happen at the end of the day, and we will continue to learn that as Mets fans. But what we do know at this juncture is that Carlos Mendoza is now the new Mets manager. I'm really curious to see what he is going to bring, his type of element to this clubhouse now for the Mets, and really going from a big difference of Buck Showalter now going to a first-time manager in Mendoza, who does have managerial experience at the MLB level with the Yankees in spurts of games, and does have managerial experience in the minor leagues. So it's not like the guy hasn't managed baseball teams before, hasn't managed at the MLB level. He has done that. It has just been one he has needed to, versus just being an actual manager and hired as that. He's not been that yet in his young MLB career. Again, keep in mind, only 43 years of age. Counsell, look at what Counsell has done over the past decade. He started right around that age too. So there are some things to look at in comparison between Counsell and Mendoza, and what Counsell built during his decade span with the Milwaukee Brewers after being a 16-year player. I also really do wonder the appeal with Chicago versus, yes, I understand New York is a big market, so there's a lot of factors that do not go in the Mets' favor plenty of times. Having said that, though, this is a Mets-ran team from David Stearns. David Stearns is the guy now, so curious as to what that relationship has been like, because the whole belief was that that relationship would be a heavy driver into this. We just didn't know to what degree. Clearly, it wasn't enough, and I'm sure that there's a mutual respect and there's no hard feelings, but I really want to know the dollars that the Cubs are getting here. That's the big one. We do not know the specifics on Carlos Mendoza's contract, but I'm going to go on a limb and say that he's making a pretty penny. He's probably making, if I had to guess, not far off money from what the Mets were planning to throw. Actually, I don't know. I mean, yes, the Mets have the money, but I don't know. Could we see Mendoza still making at least $4 a year? It wouldn't shock me. I mean, I understand that the background is very different from someone like Mendoza to Counsell, to even when the Mets hired Stearns. When the Mets hired David Stearns this year, they hired him as the highest paid Pobo in all of baseball, tied with Friedman there with the Dodgers. Now, Counsell's different because Counsell has a really, really strong background at his young level so far as a manager over the past decade, but Mendoza doesn't nearly have the type of experience or background that Counsell has. So I am curious about the contract differences, because the belief from what I saw, we'll see, is this is ever changing, that Counsell was given upwards of $7 million per year from the Mets. Mendoza is not going to be making that money, nor should he. No, not to discredit him, but he hasn't done anything to deserve those dollars to be now the highest paid manager in baseball. As I say this, watch the Mets somehow gave him $5 million. I don't know what the contract status is yet with Mendoza. That too, we have to wait and see. But when looking at a smooth fit, Carlos Mendoza, highly spoken of from the Guardians organization, the Mets, every team that he's interviewed with, and what has been widely reported is that Mendoza is really, really well liked. And if it wasn't for Vogt just coming out of being an MLB active player and really looking like a perfect transition from Francona now to, again, a player's manager in Vogt, aside from that, Mendoza very well could have been the hire there in Cleveland. Mendoza very well could have been the hire there in Milwaukee, or even potentially Houston if the Mets did not snag him here. So from what we were seeing, especially from Michael Marino, who's a good friend of mine, does a great job reporting all things baseball and the Mets specifically on Twitter. Make sure to check him out. Was reporting the build up to the Counsell and Mendoza news that the Mets do feel very comfortable with Mendoza in this situation, that they do not land Counsell. As these tweets and reports continue to come out, it became more abundantly clear the Mets would not be landing Counsell. It was becoming more of a pessimistic thought than an optimistic one. And Mendoza has been that constant as that leader, that runner-up, that basically if the Mets don't get Counsell, they're 100% getting Mendoza. And that's exactly what they ended up doing here. So now I do want to get to some of your comments. I want to get to your donations. Again, happy to have you in here more than anything, guys. Again, continue to let me know your initial reactions. Help us get to a couple hundred likes. We're already at 100 here in the live show as we're breaking down the latest news that is in Mets land. They have hired Carlos Mendoza as their latest manager. He will be filling in the shoes for Buck Showalter, as Buck in his own right is a finalist for, yes, the LA Angels, the same Angels team that under Billy Epler wanted to hire Buck Showalter a number of years ago as his next manager, but Adi Marino stepped in and had them go with John Mann, and we all saw how that went with the Angels. So Angels, good luck with whatever decision you end up making. I'm sure it's really going to entice a guy by the name of Shohei Ohtani. But getting back into this discussion now, they landed Mendoza and now Counsell to the Cubs. I want to know, what dollar figure is Craig Counsell getting that he managed to, one, I understand he's staying closer to home still by being in the NL Central, but two, how much money are the Cubs throwing and what kind of pitch here? What, like, I wish to be a fly on a wall in these type of discussions. Man, oh man, would they be something? Because yes, we can sit here and speculate and assume that it's this, it's that, it's whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we don't know for certain exactly how these conversations go. Yes, even things I reported could be blown out of proportion or not nearly to the degree that they were. But for the Chicago Cubs, of all baseball teams, mind you, this is the same Cubs team that a week ago, not even a week ago, not even, the Mets were denied trying to hire one of their heads in player development scouting because he wanted to stay with the Cubs. And now the Cubs come in and they just land one of the better managers in all baseball, by far a rival manager for them, no less. So shout out to the Cubs. Congratulations to them, first and foremost. They did a fantastic job at prying away an arch rival's leading man, their go-to guy, to come into town and be with them. I mean, look, the Cubs are on the up. This makes me believe that the Cubs are going to really make a valiant effort here for potentially even Cody Bellinger this offseason. They're going to continue to try to be competitive, but Counsell, huge get for them. And now Mendoza, they get a guy that will be a glue guy that understands the New York market. This is something that is definitely going to help the Mets when it comes to hiring Carlos Mendoza. It's not just the fact of having that bilingual aspect of him being, Hispanic himself, but also what he brings with that extensive experience in New York. Look, the pressure is always on the Yankees, and they have continued over the past over the past decade, have been anything but impressive. They've fallen short many, many years. Yes, they've been a consistent batter, but they've had gaping holes in their lineup, and they've struggled mightily to fix them. Mendoza understands what it's like to be in the New York market. Pressure with the Yanks is unlike any other, mind you, and to deal with that on a day-to-day basis is not an easy thing. So I'm happy at least the Mets are bringing in someone that, one, is young, like-minded in a lot of ways with what the Mets are trying to have, someone that can pair well with Stearns, have a mutual understanding of each other. But more than anything, having that grasp of the New York market is certainly important. I'm sure that the market aspect definitely played a factor in the Counsell's decision. Not saying it was the driving decision for him, but it certainly played a factor. There's no denying that. It could have been otherwise. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? Playing or coaching New York is easier said than done. The Mets at least get a guy who's been in New York for the past decade plus. We're going all the way back to 2009 since Mendoza started out in the Yankees organization. So there's a lot of extensive experience there. Of course, there is concern about how much of his lack of experience will come into play negatively for a Mets team for 2024. You also have the natural concerns of how much is this guy going to be a potential puppet for Stearns. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I am really excited about David Stearns and what he's trying to build here, and he wants someone that's very collaborative and understanding that they're going to have this constant dialogue back and forth from the front office to the managerial position, that being in Mendoza. But you also want to make sure that you have a manager that has a backbone at the end of the day, that is able to make his own decisions and learn on the go. So yes, let's not forget, Steve Cohen famously said over the past couple of years, he does not want to hire a guy that's learning on his dime, basically, right? So Mendoza is not someone, and I'd like to reiterate this once more, he is not someone that is coming in that is going to be completely out of it when it comes to a lack of managerial experience. Having the experience that he's had over the past couple of years filling in for Boone, either because of health reasons, because of being thrown out, or because of suspensions, that's been pretty apparent over the past couple of years with Aaron Boone, as the frustrations in the Bronx continue to bottle up and be what they currently are, which is a team that really doesn't have a true identity in the Yankees right now. Now Mendoza, he brings that experience that he's had over the past decade there, and those slivers of managerial experience both at the MLB and minor league level. He brings that in now to Queens, and hopefully him and Stearns will have a collaborative effort together, something that we can be happy to see. You're breaking up with your mic, Wardy. Okay, the mic's breaking up again. Okay, if it was also, again, apologies for the beginning of the choppiness, guys. Lately, I've noticed with my Shure mic, if it's up close to my mouth, Even if the volume's lowered, it gets poppy, but when I'm a little bit farther away, it's been sounding okay. So apologies for the troubleshooting, but I appreciate you guys letting me know, because again, if the audio isn't good or say the camera gets messed up, you got to know. I mean, I don't want you guys to sit through that, have to deal with a schmuck as is, and then on top of that, bad audio. I mean, you're already suffering enough having to deal with listening to me, the 800 concurrent live viewers, which I'm very grateful for each and every one of them. Continue to smash that like and subscribe button as you all chime into the initial news that yes, Craig Counsell is now a Chicago Cub manager. Yes, Carlos Mendoza is now the manager of the New York Metropolitans. And yes, Stephen Vogt is now the manager of the Cleveland Guardians. Your mic sounds fine to me. Awesome, Hog. Thank you so much. Shout out to you, brother. Appreciate you guys being here. Now let me get to some donations, because I know we got some donos to get into. And the poll, as things currently stand, pretty much what I actually expected to be. Out of around 700 votes, which is pretty on par with the 760 concurrent viewers, we have 17% say the following: they do like it, excited for Mendoza. 64% say not sure yet, need to learn more, and 19% say not happy with Counsell out. All justified, all understood. Trust me when I say I hear you guys with all that. Pat Mets with $20 donation. Thank you so much. Says maybe no matter what the Mets did, Counsell will not come to the Mets. I am willing to give Mendoza a shot. I'm old enough to remember when Davey Johnson and with the complaints when that happened. We know his success. Yeah, Davey Johnson's a really interesting example. Certainly not one that you can compare to, Johnson with Mendoza. Vastly different backgrounds. But yes, with most managers that the Mets have had, even going back to when they hired Johnson, there's always criticism. There's always pressure, right? And how Mendoza handles that criticism and pressure will be really interesting. And two, let's also keep in mind that this is a Mendoza that understands how bad the New York market can get. So let's say if the Mets don't have a great start to the 2024 season, of course the fan base is going to rip him a new ass right away. They're 100% going to do that. But at least Mendoza is someone that can, at least to a degree, prepare himself and understand what is going to come with what it means to be the manager of the Mets. And the media aspect certainly plays a part. It definitely does. We have seen players and coaches alike rumble in the spotlight throughout the years, not just with the Mets, but with other organizations as well. It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm really curious here. Okay. Craig Counsell's Cubs deal is the largest managerial salary in history by average salary. So, okay. So clearly he's getting the bag from the Cubs and he's getting to stay relatively home. I can understand that. I can. I certainly can. Again, Pat Mets, thank you for donation. AZ with $20. Thank you so much, AZ. AZ says the following: all these Mets fans who are not really Mets fans, you need to stop whining if Mendoza turns out to be the next Kevin Cash. That will be a steal. I want Counsell as much as the next Mets fan, but Mendoza is not a bad hire. No, I don't think this hire with Mendoza is bad whatsoever. I'm just left with question marks. Mendoza needs to prove it. Counsell, you at least understood to a degree what you were getting in him. Now just making sure that he can adjust on the fly properly with the Mets, and having that same rapport with Stearns. Not having that is certainly interesting. Not having the managerial background that Counsell has, this being the case with Mendoza, is interesting and also rightful for criticism. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I absolutely love. Oh, guys, breaking news. Adam Ottavino will not pick up his player option for the New York Mets. He will be a free agent. Adam Ottavino and the Mets' tenure appears to be coming to an end. Breaking news, folks, as free agency is essentially underway at the moment, really the early stages of it, and Adam Ottavino is out of town. Adam Ottavino, more like Adam, see you later. Adam, thoroughly enjoyed your time in Queens. I actually want to do a separate video on him. I may do that. I'll discuss him in a live show. Either way, Adam Ottavino, who looked really, really sharp in his first year as Mets reliever, this past year, up and down. I mean, he was utilized a lot more, and Adam Ottavino, if he's working back-to-back days, was basically a death sentence to give up a home run ball, felt a lot. But Adam, no less, really enjoyed his time in Queens. Really, really fun guy to have here. A great personality, not only with the fans, with the media, and someone who just really embraced being a Met and did it well. And also from the New York area. I'm not entirely sure if he grew up a Mets fan. I know he played with the Yanks for a short stint too, but happy, shouldn't say even happy, but, I'm wishing Adam Ottavino all the best. But I am curious. He's not picking up his option. I'm a little surprised. I'm actually a little surprised because Ottavino was supposed to make a decent amount of money this year. So let's check this out. Adam Ottavino contract. Then I'll get to more of your questions and we'll talk more about Mendoza. Counsell. Just want to address the breaking news that has just come out that Adam Ottavino is done with the Mets. Okay, so Adam made $7.75 million his first year. He was making $6.75 million, so $1 million less if he opted into that deal. He's not, so he will be a free agent. And I'm going to assume that by him opting for free agency, the Mets will not be bringing him back. And I can understand that entirely if that is going to be the case, you know, because even at $6.75 million can feel like a bit of an overpay for Ottavino with what you're potentially getting with him next year, which we don't know yet. Either way, Ottavino, should this be the end of his tenure in Queens, I may talk more of this in an individual video, but I'm wishing him all the best with his future endeavors, whatever they may be. I know that he wasn't perfect. Some frustrating moments with him for sure this past year, but still definitely a guy that I have no ill will with against, and I wish him all the best with whatever his future is going to be. Okay, so Adam Ottavino's out. So there's that. Also, any other donations earlier in the show that I missed, I do sincerely apologize. Unfortunately, YouTube has a cutoff, so I'm limited with what I can and can't see in the live chat. And when we have, 800 plus live viewers concurrently, I do unfortunately miss some of them. So I do apologize for any ones I may have missed. Christopher, thank you so much for $5 donation. Mendoza doesn't have a World Series on his resume. He's not a win now guy. Christopher, in defense, nor was Craig Counsell. So why should we think that this is anything different? I think people need to get out of this silly mindset that, because a manager doesn't have personally World Series experience, that they can't be a World Series manager. I'm sorry. How long did it take Dusty Baker to finally win a chip? Can we just start there? How many managers in MLB currently have not won a World Series yet are deemed as fantastic managers? I don't think there's anyone here sitting right now judging whether or not Kevin Cash is a good manager. I don't think there's anyone sitting here right now judging whether or not Craig Counsell is a good manager. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, it's not easy to win a championship, folks. I don't know if you haven't gathered that. And this is not to personally out you, Chris. I'm just trying to make an example because you're just one of many people that have these comments, and they always baffle me in my head because I'm saying to myself, it's not like you're born a champion, right? Like, you're not in a position right away where you win, like, automatically. Like, that usually is not how it goes. And it can be a drag, and it can take an extended period of time for a lot of people. And for a good portion of managers, they never even win a World Series. So I think that's just a silly notion that because he hasn't physically won a World Series yet, that means the Mets aren't win now. Don't get me wrong. Mets may have made this hire with Mendoza in part because they want to make sure that Stearns is very collaborative with him, but also that mutual understanding of knowing that, kind of feeling things out with how 2024 is going to go. That, of course, is a possibility that we have to keep in mind. But the notion that the Mets are not going to be putting their best foot forward next year because they have Mendoza as manager, in my opinion, is silly, because they made a heavy, valiant effort for Craig Counsell, and there's a reason why they felt so comfortable to pivot to Mendoza as quick as they could. Because oh my goodness. Holy shit, no fucking way. Pardon my French. Are you kidding me? Yeah, okay. Michael Marino did report that the Mets were showing an unwillingness to go to Joe Torre dollar level, which is what some believed could happen with Counsell in order to pry him away from Milwaukee. Counsell was offered around $5 million per year from Milwaukee. He's making $8 million per year over 5 years with the Chicago Cubs. Craig Counsell is almost touching $10 million a year as your Chicago Cubs manager. So that explains it. There's your reasoning. That, on top of not having to deal with the market, the media, everything that you get in New York, and staying closer to home, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, for the people that were thinking that the biggest driver would be money with Counsell, it has turned out to be that case. On top of family, being in a location that is not too far away from home, him staying in the NL Central, I'm sure is appealing. But holy guacamole, $40 million over 5 years. Craig Counsell, the new manager of the Chicago Cubs. With the amount Aaron Boone get ejected, he probably has a year worth of games, right? Hey, Jack, appreciate that donation a lot. That's funny. That is hilarious, actually. Man, oh man, that's crazy though, guys. Let's see. I love you too, Grant. Shout out Grant. Shout out to you, brother. Grant, formerly known as Jenny Mets, absolute beauty. One of the best Mets fans out there. Dave, my man, how are you? I want to get to your donation in a second. Stearns, we trust. Remember that he hired Counsell in Milwaukee to begin with? Technically, no. Stearns actually, when he first came in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, Counsell was already manager, so Stearns actually didn't handpick Counsell. However, yes, he was working with him right away. But just want to clarify that Stearns did not handpick Counsell as manager. Counsell was manager prior to Stearns coming in the reins as the GM there in Milwaukee, if my memory serves me right. Dave, thank you so much for donation. Counsell went to Cubs. I know you're upset about that. Thank you for donation. Hey, Jack, thank you so much for the membership, brother. Love you to death. Shout out all my live members, people watching live on a replay. Continue to smash that like and subscribe button to my 700 viewers. Can we get to 300 plus likes in the live show? Greatly appreciate it. We're halfway there, and we have a boatload of viewers, so very happy to have you in here. So, my goodness. I mean, that's crazy, though. That's actually nuts. Truthfully, and as someone who would have said this was an overpay if the Mets did it, it just wouldn't bother me much if the Mets did, because at the end of the day, I trust Cohen and the money he invests, and I trust Cohen to know to get out of his own mess if there's times where he invests a lot of money in guys that he doesn't want to keep. You know, let's take taking on the Cano contract and eating that, signing McCann and eating that. You know, like, he's shown those willingness in recent years, so that wouldn't concern me too much. But I understand why the Mets didn't go here, because I'm assuming that they didn't. Unless we find out that they did. Worry, check your PO box. I'm there. I absolutely will, Dave. Love you so much. Thank you so much for whatever those items may be. Excited to check them out now. So thank you so much for them. Wow. Wow. So the latest news, Craig Counsell, we're looking at Torrey money. Joe Torrey money. $8 million per year, guys. $8 million per year. Over 5 years. That's insane. Love you too, Stoney. Happy to have you in here, brother. Big money, close to home and family, and not dealing with New York market. Counsell made the best of all choices for himself. I'm sure he did. At least that's what he thinks he made, right? Wow. New York Mets news is so mad now. He called Stearns pathetic for this. Dude, isn't he? He's trying to sell his Instagram page. Who cares? Can never trust a guy named Mendoza, but here we are. Stop it. Don't be like that. Can you think he's a front office puppet? I think Mendoza, to an extent, absolutely will be. But having said that, no one shouldn't think that Counsell isn't either, right? Like, yes, they're very smart. They make smart decisions. But especially with how Counsell started, very collaborative with the front office he was working with during his time in Milwaukee. Mendoza, I'm sure, very all in ears with Boone and whatever Cashman may have had to say. Yes, there's going to be that collaborative effort, and that's what Stearns is looking for. But I guess for me, at least, I don't mind that nearly as much as long as we're seeing Mendoza making the proper in-game decisions that he needs to make, and also showing growth as a manager. I fully anticipate and expect there to be plenty of growing pains with Carlos Mendoza in his first year with the Mets. It's going to be anything but perfect, as a matter of fact. So I am expecting plenty highs and lows for the upcoming year, but let's also not forget that the manager is just as important, if not less important nowadays, than the actual players that they're working with, right? Mark Kotsay, for everyone giving this guy flack as a potential Mets managerial candidate, saying, oh, he's not a winner. Well, no shit, bro. He's in Oakland. It's not his fault. You know what I mean? Like, he had plenty of success when he was the guy there with Bob Melvin, you know, with plenty of their great regular season runs, and unfortunately their short wild card success that they would have in playoffs because the A's would never spend and get over the hump. But now you look at the A's this past year, you know, they're a team that is like non-existent. So for people to be criticizing a Mark Kotsay that's been with the A's for so long, I can't sit here and critique the guy. Like, he's doing the best he can. Like, if you're just throwing, you know, just a couple baseballs on the field and expecting something to happen, you got to deal with what you're working with. You know, he's got to do what he's got to do at the end of the day, regardless of the talent on the field. So it's going to be imperative now for the Mets to not only hopefully have a good rapport quickly between Mendoza, Stearns, and that clubhouse, but also with the players. You know, Mets have plenty of moves that they need to do this offseason, folks. It goes beyond the managerial position. They have a rotation that they need to figure out. They have an outfield that they need to solidify. They have a DH spot that they need to figure out how to properly utilize on a day-to-day, on top of plenty of other issues. So this is the first stone. This is the first domino to fall, if you will. This is the important one. This is the one the Mets want to get done as quickly as they could for the offseason, so this wouldn't drag into too many things, so that way they can focus on, okay, Mendoza, got to build that coaching staff now right away. 100% understand that. But on top of that, really need to start to dive in for agency here. Need to worry about who we're accepting, who we're declining with tenders, non-tenders, and of course, external free agents who we want to bring in, and then the trade discussions as well. So a lot more is to come this offseason. There is no denying that. Mendoza is that first true big domino, which I'm excited about, because at the end of the day, regardless on how this hire ends up with the Mets, I'm just excited to share these opinions and react with you fellow fans, because we're going to go through it together, okay? I'm not going to sit here. This is something that I know that I have done in years past, because I do get overly excited. And when guys, you know, things look well and they have great resumes, but even when that's the case, it doesn't mean it's going to lead to ultimate success. success, immediate success. So I'm going to give Carlos Mendoza a leash here with kind of how I'm feeling about him as manager. I'm not going to be too short with him. I'm not going to be calling for his head in the first 2 months of the season. I can pretty much promise you that. I'm definitely going to be giving him a leash and seeing what Stearns and him can do. But I'm not going to sit here and act like that he was, in my opinion, the best option out there, because I wholeheartedly believe that he wasn't. And at the end of the day, Craig Counsell is getting an absolute bag there to stay in the NL Central, but this time go over to Chicago and leave Milwaukee. Mets did make a serious run at Counsell, for the record. We knew this. I mean, no shit, bro. We literally knew this. It actually wouldn't shock me. How much you want to bet? How many of you guys and gals out there would be shocked if we hear momentarily that the Mets matched Chicago's offer, but he decided to go to Chicago because he wanted to be closer to home, didn't want to have to deal with the New York market? This is something that will always be an issue with the Mets, regardless of how much success they have. Now, of course, when they start to hopefully be a continued and consistent contender, that'll change the appeal a little bit for how not only players, but people in front office roles and coaching staffs look at viewing the Mets. Like, what's their point of view? That, of course, will change a little bit. Having said that, however, this is still New York at the end of the day. This is still New York media. This is still the New York Mets, who have yet to prove themselves as a team that could be a continued and a consistent contender in playoffs and have World Series aspirations. They just brought in a phenomenal mind in David Stearns as their president of baseball operations, but there's still a lot of work to do. This is still square one again in a lot of ways, and that isn't appealing for everyone out there, or at least not appealing enough when there are maybe more comfortable, solidified options out there closer to home, so you don't have to move your family all across the country. Like, there are plenty of factors that go into this, and for Counsell, I'm sure all those he weighed and ultimately led him to the decision that he feels best and most comfortable to land in the NL Central still, but to go to a familiar foe now, his team now on his side, the Chicago Cubs. You say they offered $7 million for 3 years. The Mets definitely offered at least $7 million. Definitely at least $7 million. But $8 million per year is nuts to me. Actually insane to me. Man, oh man, oh man. Crazy. Brewers fans gotta be pissed more than anything. Come on, Wardy. He loves to burn money. This owner, they could have got him. God, don't you think if the Mets could have gone him, they would have gone him? It's not about coulda, shoulda, woulda. They didn't for a reason. And it takes two to tango on top of that. You know, we cannot forget that. As much as we love to talk about the fact that Steve Cohen has so much money and that makes the Mets a player, and basically most discussions for anyone that could be impactful of a team positively, whether that's a player or a coach or someone in front office, Mets always have their name tag, not only because of the media aspect and, you know, Mets for clicks, because there's always attention there, but truthfully, it's because the Mets are a more appealing destination than they were prior to Cohen. And Cohen has shown a willingness to spend money to help his team the best way that he possibly can, even if that means that he's going to have to eat money at the end of the day because you tried something that didn't work. Okay, now you're on to the next. But having said all of that, it's still a two-way street, right? And this has to be appealing for both sides completely. If that was the case, I promise you the Mets would have hired Counsell, because Counsell would have wanted to come here and fully commit. There's a reason why that didn't happen. There's multiple reasons why that didn't happen. And now I'm just excited to see what is going to happen with Mendoza and his future here in Queens. So a little bit more on Carlos Mendoza. As we mentioned, yes, he has been the Yanks bench boss since really over the past 4 years now. And, you know, he's been in the Yankees organization for quite a bit. I do want to pull up something. Mendoza. 1 second. $8 million per cut. Yeah, $8 million is crazy. I'm genuinely surprised that the Cubs went there. I guess is a bigger surprise I have at the moment, that the Cubs actually went all the way there to make that happen. Bear with me, everybody. Okay, now we're good. I just had to double check something. Okay, Mets hiring longtime Yankees coach Carlos Mendoza as manager for people in the back. Craig Counsell is going to Chicago, which is still crazy to me. So crazy. Mendoza is not Rojas 2.0. I guess you don't have much insight on this guy. I did not say that. I don't know who said that. I don't know. I did not say Mendoza is Rojas 2.0. There are similarities between the two for sure, as both younger, like-minded coaches and kind of being the swap. And you're seeing Mendoza go to Queens, and we saw Rojas go to the Bronx, albeit a smaller role. There's third base coach. Aside from their lack of managerial experience and the fact that they're both Spanish, there isn't much more to it. Mendoza has had an extensive experience in the Yanks organization, far longer than what we've seen Rojas have, even with the Mets' current active team. We're not talking minor leagues, just talking about the actual club itself. Rojas wasn't with the actual club itself for a long period of time. He just came in right away as manager, and that was basically it. At least with Mendoza, he's had experience for the past 4+ years now as the Yanks bench boss, has managed numerous games for them during that time, and is someone that has managerial experience at the minor league level. So no, aside from the similarities that I read over to you already, they are not the same, and fans should do themselves a favor and not get in this comparison contest, because they're just going to lead them to frustration and think that, oh my goodness, this is Luis Rojas 2.0. He's going to be the same thing. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. Just stop. Just stop thinking with that mentality. Be open-minded. I would say the same thing even with Counsell. You still need to be open-minded. When I've talked extensively about Counsell up until this point, I've had many fans who have either not been in favor of him or were really questioning, okay, is he going to be worth it at the end of the day? And I also know that the Mets threw this contract to Counsell. While there would be a lot of fans, including myself, still happy, there would also be that ridiculous amount of pressure right away. So just think about, let's talk for a second. Let's say if Counsell did come here just for a minute, $8 million per year, 5-year deal, $40 million. And the Mets' brutal first half of the 2024 season. You really think the fan base is going to go over that well? You really think so? The same fan base that still has the audacity to talk shit on Lindor fast, a lot of you guys, because you're still butthurt over the first 2.5 months of the 2021 season? You know who you are. The fans I'm talking to, exactly who I'm talking. I'm looking right at you. Not all of you. You know who I'm talking about. All right. We need to get out of this thought process that it's okay, that they're the same. They're not. Farthest thing from it. And I am very much excited to see what's going to be happening from here going forward. I still am trying to wrap my head around the fact that the Cubs have Counsell. The Cubs got Counsell. It's such a curveball, because I never, not once in a million years, I think for a second. What? I'm getting a call to Fat Chicken at 2:05 p.m. Eastern on November 6th. What is going on? What is this chat? My goodness gracious. You, sir, going to timeout. You think that Fat Chicken? I mean, what? I don't even know how to reply to that. The Cubs are going to continue to be on the up and up. I can tell you that much. This was a smart hire for them, but dear God, did they throw a bag at him? They really did. Let's see. What are you going to do when he gets rid of Alonso? We can't be a homer here. If the Mets get rid of Alonso, we'll have the discussion, but I do not anticipate that to happen this offseason, nor do I anticipate that to happen in the near future. So you shouldn't think that way either. Learning from Boone, are you kidding me? It's more than just learning from Boone. It goes beyond that. And if there's anything to be said, I really am excited, and I hope that Mendoza can kind of prove some doubters wrong here. Because man, oh man, would that be rich if Mendoza comes out and thrives with the Mets, when the Yanks can look and knowing that they had Mendoza for those numbers of years over the past decade and did nothing with him. That would be the best situation here for us Mets fans. And Mendoza comes in, he has hopefully immediate success or close to. I mean, that would be nothing better. That would truly be remarkable if the Mets find themselves in that situation where they hire a manager from the Yanks was Aaron Boone's go-to guy. He's gone, and now he's thriving and doing better than what Boone be doing in Queens. I mean, not Queens, rather, but in the Bronx. You were open-minded for Callaway and Rojas and what happened, but that was also a different regime, and we were also open-minded back then. But let's keep in mind this is not a Will Ponzian regime. We should not be open-minded in that sense where it's like, oh, we'll see what happens. I think we should be open-minded. There's fair criticisms, but being open-minded in the sense of giving David Stearns a shot here. Let's start there, because this goes beyond just Mendoza. This is a David Stearns discussion is really what we're having, aside from, okay, it would have been awesome if they got Counsell. That isn't happening. They get their best next man up option, according to all these vast reports. This is David Stearns' first big hire. So if there's anyone that we should be looking at and kind of putting the pressure on, it's David, because this is David's hire, which means that David is going to do all he can to try to justify and give benefit of the doubt with Mendoza here too. Carlos Mendoza, I do not foresee going anywhere in the near future unless a fantastic managerial candidate presents itself a year from now and the Mets, they had Mendoza and he was nothing crazy. Unless it's a Chicago Cubs situation a year from now, basically, where because there's such a huge name out there that it just makes you deviate from what you currently have, even if what you currently have isn't bad because you can upgrade. Unless it's that situation a year from now with what the Cubs just had happened with David Ross to then going to Counsell, Mendoza's going to probably be here for a little bit. And this is Stearns' guy. So more than anything, criticisms will not only go towards Mendoza, should there be struggles. They won't just go towards the team, but they too will also be in hand with David Stearns. I'm excited as all hell about David Stearns, and I really do believe that he's going to help build this Mets team and get them to the promised land where they need to be. Hopefully multiple years of this. But he still needs to prove it, right? So I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh my goodness, there's going to be no bad to happen, right? Because even when things have looked perfect on paper, they have fallen apart, hence what many believe to be the 2022 season before it even began for the New York Metropolitans. The point I'm trying to make is, yes, we have our judgments. Yes, we're going to have our criticisms, but hold on them a little bit. Let's learn more about Mendoza. Let's see how he goes with his first go about the Mets here, but also see how the rest of the offseason plays out, who he builds his coaching staff with, and then we'll kind of come to this initial belief and thought processes. And throughout the regular season, then we'll share those opinions and views on both Mendoza and Stearns alike, and seeing, is this a collaborative effort that we were hoping to see, that Stearns was hoping to see? Is this not going the way that we initially thought it was going to go, or even that Stearns thought it was going to go? And know that those criticisms are fair and they're valid, especially if things do not go right. So I think that this is one thing that I really want to emphasize more than I have in previous off seasons when discussing moves like this that happen, is it's very easy for a fan like myself to get so cooped up in about it being this new, shiny, pretty toy that we have. In this case, it's Carlos Mendoza, because it's a new, young hire, like half the age of Buck Showalter, mind you. Very different hire. So naturally, there's excitement there and there's interest level. But versus, I guess, the immaturity that comes with being a younger fan in years past, where you think that, oh my goodness, this is 100% a fantastic thing, nothing can go wrong. Be more open-minded in all fronts, knowing that things very well might not go the way that we hope. And if they do happen, why exactly is that? How much can we pinpoint on Mendoza? How much can we pinpoint on Stearns? On the flip side, things go right. How much should we credit them in these situations too? Just as a fan, just something that I'm sharing with all you, to the 700 plus live viewers and the hundreds to thousands that we're going to see on replay, and really just gathering our true thoughts on this move here, and why it's very easy to be reactionary and say you love it or you hate something, but just give it time. Let it marinate for a little bit. I really want to know what this coaching staff is going to be too. And if guys like Chavez and Hefner alike do stay put, or if one or both are parted with to go elsewhere because they realize that the opportunities are no longer there here in Queens, either the same or just because Mendoza's like, I'm sorry, I have to clean house. I want to build my own staff. Nothing personal, but I have some people that I have in mind, not only from the Yanks organization maybe, but from other organizations that I really want to bring together here. So a lot of question marks, understandably so, but do not get it twisted. The Mets are doing their best to put the right foot forward here. They did not land the pretty shiny toy that you could say is Counsell, but there seems to be some valid reasoning for that. Whether that's going to end up looking like a right or wrong decision, we'll soon see. But I think it was pretty obvious that the Mets' hands were tied here. I think the Mets did the best that they could while being rational in doing so. Just because you have money doesn't mean you need to give them money that is so absurd, blowing them out of the water. Because Craig Counsell's now average annual value getting paid at minimum $3.5 million more than the next highest paid manager in baseball. That is a shit ton of money for a guy that, albeit has a great track record, too, needs to show more success at the playoff level once he gets there as well. So just really, really interesting day is what I'm seeing from all this. And as I'm continuing to gather my thoughts here and share with you guys my opinion, yes, it's a first-time manager, but no, it's not an experienced first-time manager. The way that a Mark DeRosa would be, for example, the way that even a Carlos Beltran would be. As many people, as much as I know a lot of people were advocating and in love with the idea of having Beltran come in, especially, that is another situation where you have to look at it and be like, okay, why are the Mets considering here? They have their reasons, but the guy has no coaching experience at any level in professional baseball. So that in itself can be justified why you're not going there, right? Mendoza has this. He has plenty of it. He has enough to warrant, if you're going to be a first-time manager, don't be a rookie. I think that's the best way to explain this. There's a difference between being a first-time manager and having no previous either experience, in a coaching staff with a current MLB club or managing in a minor league level. That is a guy like Marco DeRosa. He has, his MLB experience. Yes, he managed with the World Baseball Classic and did well, but he's working with the best athletes imaginable with Team USA. Okay, it's not like he had to do too much in that situation versus coming in a spot here versus Mendoza, who's been with the Yanks for over a decade now, has been their bench boss the past 4 years, understands the New York market, is younger, understands today's newfound information. Both him and Stearns alike, I do like the fact that they're both young and like-minded in that sense. I'm hoping that's a really nice, smooth transition and appeal for both here. And for Counsell, not for Counsell, for Mendoza, that smooth transition, just going one borough over the Queens. That's easy part. That's easy. That's done. And for Stearns now, he's getting someone that he can really kind of build and form into what he is viewing as hopefully the most ideal managerial candidate now that Counsell's no longer an option, right? So that's kind of what I'll leave you with. Definitely fair criticisms all the way around. I'm excited, I'm interested, and I'm curious. I'm curious more than anything. Thank you guys for the continued likes as well. We're getting closer to 300 in the live show. Continue smashing those buttons, as always, as we're breaking down the latest news that is in Mets land. Mets have a new manager. He is not Craig Counsell. He is Carlos Mendoza, the man who was long believed as the runner-up for quite a bit. Just seeing if there's any new information that I missed here, so bear with me 1 second, guys. This is hilarious. I'll just share this with you guys too before we wrap things up sooner than later. And I think this is just, I don't know what article this is from, but James Shiano, co-host of the Mets Up podcast with Giraffe Neck Mark, tweeted this, and he said, "This is probably my favorite piece of information I've seen so far on Carlos Mendoza." And it's the following quote: Mendoza, I can't even say this properly. Ceremoniously tosses exactly 40 sunflower seeds in the grass behind home plate. He recites a prayer as well that is unknown to the public. Before each game at Yankee Stadium, he did this. I love that. I love the stupid rituals and all that stuff. Even when guys are in slumps, I remember, what was it, early last season or the year prior, Dansby Swanson, he's in a slump, so he's freaking burning sage across the Brave Stadium there, which is hilarious to me. So the early ritual for Carlos Mendoza, now Mets manager, during his time with the Yanks, would be throwing exactly 40 sunflower seeds in the grass behind home plate while reciting a prayer that is unknown to the public. So that is the most interesting fact that I could probably give you about Carlos Mendoza today. And shout out as well to my man James for finding that piece of information, which is hilarious. Mets fans are always so negative. Give the dude a shot. He's got a bunch of experience. I 100% agree with you, Chris. The ritual did wonders for the Yankees this year. You're right, John. That's hilarious. Counsell, no experience, you never know. Absolutely, absolutely, and that's kind of the mindset that at least I'm going into this to a degree for sure, while also weighing all the other factors that have made Mendoza so appealing. And why? Let's also not forget this one thing, guys. If Carlos Mendoza was not hired as a Mets manager right now, pretty much a sure guarantee that he would be a manager elsewhere. That is something to make note of, okay? He was a hot commodity. And while Counsell was the prettiest, shiniest toy, that piece that everyone wanted the most, Mendoza quickly became the heir apparent throughout this search with not only Cleveland, but I know he was in Padres mix as well. When the Padres were weighing both internal and external options, one of them was initially Eric Chavez, but then as reports came out today as well, we saw that Mendoza was in the final running. So Mendoza pretty much was looking like a lock that he would be landing as a manager somewhere in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. It was just a matter of where, as he did his respective interviews with Cleveland, with the Padres, with Milwaukee. I mean, he very well could have been a Brewers replacement, mind you, if that interest level from him was there, knowing that Counsell is leaving Milwaukee now. Because now the Brewers just lost David Stearns, albeit David was on the outside looking into things this past year with the Brewers because he stepped away from the game. But they lost David Stearns, and now they've lost Craig Counsell. And they, of course, will work with their internal options. They'll still be a successful ball club. But especially seeing Counsell go from the Brewers to the Cubs, I still can't get over that. I just think that's crazy. And Brewers fans have all the right in the world to be pissed off, and I don't blame them. But I mean, even the Brewers would never, they would never throw a contract like that. I just can't believe the Cubs did. That's my biggest takeaway right now. I just can't believe the Cubs did. Everybody in baseball likes to hire, only the fans don't like it. Yeah, but in defense, Rob, this goes in hands with the fans' lack of knowledge on the situation of the person. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert of Carlos Mendoza. I'm going to be learning more and more about him in the coming days, and ultimately watching him and following him to a T as Mets manager. So that's the difference between the fans and the industry level. The industry level knows Mendoza well, are hearing how the interviews are going, hearing that they're going great, that he's widely regarded, as a great guy, understands the game really well, and looks like a nice fit to be a guy that could be, a manager in the game for hopefully not only this upcoming season, but years to come. Like, this could really be the start of something. So that's just the nature of the game when you have fans who have a lack of knowledge. Truthfully, bluntly, including myself, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on Carlos Mendoza. I haven't watched this guy. I wasn't watching his pregame rituals in Yankee Stadium, throwing exactly 40 seeds behind home plate. But I'm also a Mets fan. So there's reasons for that. That is bad choice, but David wanted a yes man. That's what we got. Don't like it at all. First call from David, and it's a bad one. Expect to see David managing the whole season. God have mercy. Hector, my question to you is, how much are you against that potential philosophy of it being a yes man, which we do not have confirmation of? Like, yes, it's 100% true. Like, he's not going to be a puppet to the point of like, oh my God, Stearns is pulling every string. But Stearns is definitely, they're going to have a collaborative effort. But my question to you in the chat, Hector, specifically you, and for anyone else that has this question, is what about Stearns concerns you in this situation where he is pulling strings? Okay? What about the front office having to say in managerial decisions, which they all do every single year, just varies on degrees. Hence the disagreements between Buck Showalter and Billy Upper this past year regarding Daniel Vogelback, for example. Great example. That was widely reported from the Post prior to Buck Showalter's firing. And then Billy Upper, what happened there. My question is, how much does that bother you when we know that Stearns is someone that does have a very strong background, is deemed as one of the best young minds in all baseball for front offices? So that's my question. What about that is such a concern level? Mendoza hiring, Braves laughing their butts off. I can give two shits how the Braves feel right now. Last time I checked, the Braves have more concerns about having a historic season and choking absolute you-know-what against the Phillies again. So they need to worry about getting themselves in order. And Braves, I think what the Braves taught me this past year, they were too pretty. They were way too good looking of a team. Seriously, like way too talented. I know it sounds silly, but bear with me. How many years have we seen like easily the best looking team in the regular season just get wiped early because they don't got the mojo? They can't handle the smoke. They can't handle the opposing fan base's pressure. We've seen that many years with the Dodgers. The Braves were this year's latest example. So, if you're going to bring Braves in this conversation, they can laugh all they want. We don't give a rat's ass. We're not even nearly in the same spectrum what the Braves are right now. But we do have one thing in common. We both had a failure of a 2023 year. And if you don't think that it wasn't from Braves fans' perspective, how can you not for a team that absolutely should have had a deeper run than what they had? You people don't deserve a guy like Counsell. Wow, that really hurt me. Yeah, because Mets fans who have an amazing amount of success in our history don't deserve having a manager that we want. God forbid. God forbid. Don't get me wrong. New Yorkers are loudmouths. They talk shit. They got a lot to say. But when it comes to fandom and what they deserve, Mets fans have been through hell and back. And I know Brewers have been through lots. Brewers fans have been through a shit ton. I understand that. But don't think that just because we're a big market team that we haven't been through things. Okay? Like, there's a reason why there's been so much turmoil in a recent year. AJ Tingler, Preller confirmed. No. Preller and Preller and Stearns are vastly different in many ways. And Preller doesn't have nearly the background or experience, let alone the positive background that Stearns has had. What has Preller done since coming in San Diego besides throwing out a mediocre ball club pretty much every single year, spending a shit ton of money and not having anything to prove for it yet, to the point where they're taking out loans, $50 million loans, just to help them get by? Like, no. Stop it. We need to stop with these stupid comparisons of things when there's no correlation. They have nothing to do with each other. Can we snap out of this, please? Like, please and thank you would be nice. Is 40 Sunflower Seeds the new Mendoza line? I guess if he continues to do it, then hey, I'm gonna just call him Sunflower. Maybe that's gonna be his nickname. I don't know. Hey Seeds, how you doing, Mr. 40? I don't know. It depends on if he carries a ritual over or not. No matter who they get, this franchise is jinx. I mean, there's definitely we felt that cursed part of New York plenty. Can't deny that. Cannot deny that. Let's see. Mendoza and Alvarez are both Venezuelan. That could be a good combination. That's true. Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to hurt. That's for certain. I'm sure it'll definitely make someone like Francisco feel good too, knowing that he's going to have his manager, someone that he can talk comfortably with. Even though that Alvarez has done a fantastic job working on his English this past calendar year, it's still choppy. And naturally, as someone who getting familiar with a new language in a new country, you still have a preference to want to speak fluently, which is normally in your native tongue of, for his case, being Venezuelan. So that's not bad. Draken, Terry Collins says bad hire. You know what, Terry? Good for you. So glad you hit the jackpot. It doesn't matter if that's actually true. If you said that. Okay, so out of over 1,000 votes, we're pretty much exactly how we started. 61% of you are not sure how to feel about the Mendoza hire yet. 21% are not happy with Counsell out, and 18% are excited for Mendoza. So that is what I will leave you with, guys. I don't want this to be too long-winded. Be more content. I know I have plenty more content that I need to be working on. I'm thinking, guys, we will either be live again later today or tomorrow. We have video content coming out. I think I'm actually going to do a quick hitter on Ottavino possibly. We'll see on that front. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Breaking news, Carlos Mendoza is now the Mets' latest managerial hire. We will talk at more length on this throughout the week. And of course, once we find out continued new information in our live shows, we'll expand on it there. But yes, Mendoza is now the Mets guy. We will see what he does. I appreciate the discourse in the live show and of course the replays down below, which I'm sure will be plenty. And AJ, thank you so much for the donation, John. And you're probably a Supreme Court level job security. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think that's true in San Diego. I know that him and Seidler do have a really good connection. But no one's job is at that security. Maybe Boone and Cashman. Cashman with Boone, but I digress. Thank you so much again, guys. Stay tuned. More consistent content coming your way. Breaking news, Mendoza's in, Counsell's out. Now let's see what is next for the New York